Welcome to Marvel Champions Podcast, a podcast about Marvel Champions, the card game. I am your host, Scott, and with me as always, my co-host, Ryan.
That is right. And Scott, I have a special treat for you.
Oh, do tell, Ryan.
I have brought along a guest. I mean, technically you know about it too, but we've brought a guest, and it's someone that probably not a lot of people know about. It is our other brother, Casey.
I
Casey, what's
guarantee
happening?
there's not many people that know about me. Uh, Doing real well. Thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate it.
We're going to get to it, but tonight we're going to talk about Magneto, our hero review, and we thought we'd bring Casey on. We got a chance to play a game of Marvel Champions with him over the Thanksgiving break, and he played Magneto. So I prepared all these decks, and we're trying to get our other brother to play. So I made a deck for Nightcrawler, which is our other brother's favorite mutant Marvel character, and he didn't play. So I had planned to play Magneto, but I gave Casey the first pick, and he went with Magneto. So we thought we'd get his take on Magneto. He's played a couple of games with us, so he's fairly new. And yeah, so we'll have him join in for this review. But before we get into that, why don't we find out a little bit more about Casey? Why don't you tell us maybe a little bit about your interaction so far with Marvel Champions, and maybe board games, or like what do you like to do, Casey?
Yeah, so primarily I play mostly board games. That's kind of been doing that for several years. Got into it pre-pandemic, and then pandemic expanded even more with a good group of guys. Recently got into tabletop RPGs as well, which has been a good time. Don't have a ton of experience with Marvel Champions in particular. I think probably 4 or 5 maybe different games, all with you guys over the past, I don't know what, 7 years or so. I know I was late to the party. You guys were already on it when you invited me to come play, but it was a good time. I enjoy it. It's a fun game. I'm very bad at it, but luckily I've got you guys to shepherd me through.
I mean, it's good to see you play and you have like questions of like, wait, what am I doing? Because it reminds us like how complicated this game can be, especially if we just throw you in. But we're me and Scott are playing like, all right, we're gonna do this on a turn, and all right, your turn, and you're just kind of like, let's see.
Tell me again, what does this word mean?
What does this word mean?
Yeah, that was fun. I was like, hey, can you kill this minion for me? Or hey, can you thwart this down? And you're like, maybe?
There's definitely a chance.
But thankfully, you can pick up on it, and you did. You picked up very well, and I thought you did really well with Magneto.
I do remember that my first time playing, I had the opportunity to play as Spider-Ham. Because
that's right.
I thought that was the most ridiculous character I could pick in Mojo World. And that was a lot of fun. It was a good time.
That's right. We played that at the game store, I believe.
Yeah. We tried to set up a play night, and it was fun.
Yeah, because
turnout was
wasn't
light,
that
but
the
it was
release?
fun.
I think that was the release of one of your box.
Yeah, the one of the organized play kits, I think for Mutant Genesis, was there. So we got to take advantage of that. That was fun. So for Marvel Champions, Casey, is there anything about the game that you like really enjoy, and maybe like something you either don't understand, so it doesn't seem that fun, or anything like that?
So I have to admit, this is my first living card game that I've played, first and only. Well, I'm not new to deck builders in general. I am new to the living card game style, where you created a full deck and continue adding to it over time. The one thing that I found not frustrating, but mildly off-putting is, you guys know, you've been doing this for years now. So you know everything that's supposed to happen. So I would be sitting here trying to figure out my turn, and just for the sake of speed, so it wasn't a 4.5 hour game, you're already pushing things through, moving the next stuff, rolling this guy up, already handing out the cards that were gonna hose me later. So I didn't really get a good understanding of the full order of how things go. So that was, mildly frustrating just because I'm like, I have no idea why this is happening, but they say it's supposed to, so let's just roll with it. Uh, and I imagine if we had a whole night or if I'd been playing it longer than 4 times, those are things that I'd pick up as well pretty quickly. I mean, it all seemed pretty straightforward. It's the same thing every time in that uh, turn order and how things happen. So it's just learning those things. As far as what I enjoy, honestly, it's great to feel like I'm playing a Saturday morning cartoon.
All right. I like that. I like that. What advice would you give to someone that is new to this game as someone that is new to this game?
Play with people that are experienced and that are patient.
Oh, patience.
Yeah, because I have no idea. I have no doubt. A few times I'd look at Scott while we were playing, and he'd just look at me like this. He's an older brother. He should be better than this, uh, and he's not wrong. But yeah, just play with people that know what they're doing and who are willing to take the time to teach you how to do it as you go along. And I think you can get a lot more enjoyment out of it than starting from scratch by yourself. I don't know how this game plays solo because I haven't done it, but I know you all have, and you still seem to enjoy it. So I guess I need to just steal some cards from Scott, like Ryan does, and
Yeah.
give it a try solo and see if I can learn some of the rules.
Yeah, I definitely think the villain scenario and the hero can make a big difference because sometimes there's just a lot going on. Like the scenario we played had a lot going on, and then Magneto, I feel like can have a lot going on depending on where you are. So
Yeah, I would say
Yeah,
the Magneto character can be, I don't say he's like super technical, but with some of the stuff that's like constantly his magnetic pull ability and things like that, there is a couple little nuances to kind of be mindful
yeah.
of.
There were a few times where I was like, "Oh, wait a minute, still need to do that," or "Is this the right order to do that?" And you guys were huge help on helping me get through that.
I remember, since we're going to walk down memory lane here, so when you guys, I think, got into board games like a little bit before I did, and one of the deck builders that we played was Marvel Legendary, and that's really kind of what got my first introduction to kind of modern board gaming. And I was like, oh man, I really like this game. And I think we played the Aliens version first before we played the
Yeah,
Marvel version. And yeah, that's the night that it started it all for me. So I appreciate you guys inviting me to that one night many, many years ago.
your wallet doesn't, but
No, my wall in the giant like shelf of games does not. My wife.
all right, well, shall we get to business and actually talk about Magneto?
Yeah, let's get into it. Magneto, last of the mutant heroes. For some people, positive. For some people, they wanted that Hank McCoy hero that we never got. So,
That's right,
uh,
Casey.
rules clarification. Is there no playable beast?
there,
That's one of the big controversies is they did not make a beast hero. There is a beast ally that you can play, but not an actual hero.
That does seem like a misstep.
Many people in the community believe it's a misstep.
I bet Kelsey Grammer is rolling over in his grave.
Wait, he's not dead, is he?
No, he's not.
no.
I was like,
He's
wait,
in
what just
the he's in
happened?
the MCU now, so
That's right.
he's,
That's
he can start
right.
raking it in. CGI obviously. He's like, I'm not sitting through all that makeup again. That's when you
Smart move.
know, like, the actor or actresses have like gotten over their makeup is like later down, like the third, fourth movie, they're like wearing a full jumpsuit and it's only like their face that is painted.
Or they
Just
die
watch the
pretty quick in
progression.
the.
Right.
That's right.
I think
All right.
funny one for me is go watch the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy and just watch how much clothes that Drax puts on from movie to movie.
Yes.
All right, let's do it. Let's get to alter ego. Eric Lischner. Is that how you pronounce it?
Lyncher? I don't know.
Lyncher?
I don't speak.
Linzer?
I have to
My
say that is
German.
one of my favorite things about listening to you guys is hearing Ryan trying to pronounce names.
And I keep them
It's
in
that
every
good old
time.
education that I got.
Yeah. Just call him Eric or Magneto.
Well, we'll just call him Eric. His main thing, he's pretty normal on his stats, but his main thing is his response survivor, which is after you change to this form, shuffle the top 3 cards of your deck into your deck, or discard pile into your deck. And overall, I thought the ability was pretty good. I liked being able to put some cards in my deck, especially if I could plan it out, where my hero turn, I discard certain cards, flip, and I know I'm getting those back. So I thought this was a pretty solid ability for a hero.
Yeah, I think so too. He doesn't have a way to confuse enemies, but I found that I could flip down pretty easy to alter ego and didn't have to worry about scheming out, which was good. I think the other thing is, I think that pairs well with his Asteroid M that we'll get to, because you can kind of double dip. You can kind of stack the top of the deck, the discard pile, and then also get another magnetic card back. Some good little combos there.
Combo.
Combo. All right. So before we get to hero, let's talk about Asteroid M, Ryan, because with Magneto, for me, he introduced a couple of like interactions with the game that I was like second guessing myself a couple times. I know we've talked about it offline a little bit. But Asteroid M is his support. It's a 2-cost support. It's location magnetic. Alter ego action, exhaust Asteroid M. Shuffle the topmost magnetic card in your discard pile into your deck and heal 1 damage from your identity. That was pretty good. The healing was nice. I never felt like I took a lot of damage with Magneto, but it was nice to kind of top up. And then to get his good magnetic cards, because all of his hero kit cards are magnetic, which is nice. But my thing came from, well, if I don't have a magnetic card, can I still activate Asteroid M, Ryan? And I'll give you the credit because you did some of the legwork on finding it out.
We did a lot of research in the rules reference, and we did find that it's all about like the valid target. And technically, as long as there's a magnetic card or someone you can heal, there's a valid target. It can be either or.
Yeah, as long as there was one of the two, you could perform it. So the scenarios that you couldn't is if you had no magnetic counters and if you had full health, you could not activate Asteroid M. But as long as you had at least one magnetic counter or card in your discard and had taken or sustained at least 1 damage, you could perform it, even if the other wasn't true.
Yep.
So if you had
so you could do it.
No magnetic but 1 health gone, you could do it. If you had full health but had a magnetic card, you could do it.
To be honest,
that surprises me just because of the and. I would think it would need to be both, but I trust you guys.
We had to look at the rules, and that's what we determined. And that's Ryan's final judgment.
yeah,
And that's what matters.
I think it said it like almost like verbatim of like, as long as a part of it hits, then it doesn't matter. As regards to the second half, the first half. So this is a little rules thing for you, Casey. Where the little arrow is that points, that first half has to be able to be done. So in this case, it's exhaust Asteroid M, and then you point to that arrow, and then you can do everything. So if the arrow was in like a different part of the card, then it could potentially alter this. But as far as the rules that I could see, it is a go.
So as long as you can exhaust Asteroid M, you can do either of the two or both, dependent.
Yeah.
As long as at least one of them were true to being a valid target in there. So as long as I had at least 1 magnetic card in the discard and I had or had sustained at least 1 amount of damage.
Right. which
Yeah.
makes sense. They're not going to give you back more energy than you have.
Right. And if you have no magnetic
Correcto.
cards, then you can't put the topmost one in there because there is no topmost.
I've played Magneto several times, and out of all those plays, I think I've only had this out once, maybe twice. Just that's the way it worked out, and I think it's okay. I don't think it's bad by any means. It'd be nice to get that magnetic card. It's nice to heal, but overall, I thought it was okay. But I know that you played with it, Casey. Did you have any thoughts on it?
I was super excited to get this card out because I was too dumb repeatedly to realize that I had to be an alternate or alter ego form to make it work. So I had some incredible combos set up that didn't happen because I was not an alter ego
Yeah, it gets you every time.
every time.
Yeah. There's a hero idea, Ryan. It's just, well, I guess we're getting Maria Hill, just supports that you can actually use in hero form. So,
There you go. Yeah.
I'd
yeah.
say, yeah, it definitely has its place. And I think if I were better, I think I'd have been able to see those places a little more often where it would have made it worthwhile to flip down, take advantage of it, and then flip right back on the next turn
Yeah.
to go back to kicking people's butt.
Yeah, I'm with you, Ryan. I think it was good. I found value in it. It's definitely no Kurt's Chapel. I found value in it, but if I couldn't get it out or I had to toss it or use it as a resource, it wasn't like a huge, huge miss for me. So
Yeah.
go ahead.
I was
I'll
gonna
cut
say, do you want to give it to Casey to do the hero form?
Yeah, let's have Casey do the hero form.
AC do the hero form. All right, this is Mangetto. Did I say it right,
Ah,
Ryan?
jeez, don't be like that. Don't be like
Magneto.
that.
He's an X-Man. Two thwart, two attack, two defense. His ability is Magnetic Pool. The action, discard cards from the top of your deck until a magnetic card is discarded. And add that card to your hand, limit once per round. I thought this was a great ability.
Ooh.
Especially once I was able to get out, which card was it? Magneto's armor. It gained ability because it allowed me to pull extra either thwart or attack or defense, depending on what I was able to pull when doing my magnetic ability.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point. The ability on its own, just the magnetic pull, is a pretty a good ability.
Yeah.
I think, is it all of his cards have magnetic, Scott? Is that right?
They do. That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of his cards have magnetic, so you're pulling something that you likely want. And, I mean, you have to discard to do it, but you're going to get something. So it's basically you're drawing a card on your turn. But, like you said, once you get his armor or some of his other upgrades, it really just explodes on its power level. It just becomes so valuable. And I think that combo makes him a very strong hero for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's the one thing I like about it is with any hero, what are you shooting for? It's their kit cards, right? Those are the big cards, the cards that do the most, and having the ability to like go get them on a pretty regular basis is pretty strong. Is what I found.
I mean, he's essentially, even though his card says a hand size of 5, he's essentially a hand size of 6 every turn, which is incredibly powerful in this game.
Yeah, and there's some cards I imagine we'll honorably mention towards the end of to make those discarding things better.
Yeah.
I did run across potential rules interaction, Ryan. I think we
Okay.
talked about this one too. So what happens if you magnetic pull and you deck out? Do you A, get to shuffle your discard and make a new deck and keep pulling? Or do you just stop? Do you stop magnetically pulling?
I believe it can whiff, if I remember right, because it is discarding, not drawing. Is that...
That's correct.
Oh, ding, 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 ding.
Hey, you got it right. Yeah.
All right.
However, I mentioned that. I think I only ever encountered that, I think, one time. So I found that the magnetic pull ability was good, that its hit rate was, almost 100%. I
Yeah.
very rarely whiffed on it.
It as long as you're paying attention, it's 100%. But it can happen. It happened to me. I forgot how many cards, and I thought I had a magnetic, and I didn't, and I decked out, and I was like, shoot, that was a waste.
60% of the time, it works every time.
That's right.
They've done studies, 60% of the time, it works every time.
That doesn't make sense.
So yeah,
All right.
pretty good. I think the other thing I was going to mention, a 2-2-2 stat line was really good, and it plays well into one of the upgrades that I hope to talk to. And yeah.
Yeah,
So Casey,
I agree.
you had mentioned his armor. Why don't you? You don't need to read the whole card if you don't want to. You can just talk about the premise like you did, and maybe which one of the attributes did you find were like the most beneficial for you?
Sure. So as you pull your magnetic cards, depending on what you pull, you either get a thwart, an additional thwart, additional attack, or additional defense, which was great. I think more often than not, I ended up with additional thwart when we did it, which I found particularly helpful because the particular scenario that we were running, we had a lot of, you all have to fill in what the correct thing is, where we have our main villain and then our little side schemes, question mark.
Yep.
That's
Yep,
right.
You got it.
Yep.
Look
Side
at that.
schemes.
Listening to the Marvel Champions podcast has taught me something.
We're helping
We
at
had a
least
ton
one
of side
person.
schemes. That's right. So there was constantly a need to thwart, and that gave me just a little extra to be able to contribute consistently, which I appreciated.
Yeah, I think Magneto's armor, for the cost and what it does, it's a really good card. I liked it a lot. I agree. I think the thwart was the one that I liked the most as well, and I saw it very often. The one that I came across that I didn't like was the defense, because a lot of times I did not defend, and so
Yeah.
when that came up, it was kind of like, oh, cool. I guess I got a defense.
I
And
found
it was
that's
also
the
a little-
one. I was gonna say that was the one I found that I kept getting but didn't want. I always like could buff my defense, but I was like, I needed thwart.
It was a little frustrating because it's all based on what you can discard. So if you happen to hit a sweet spot where you're not discarding anything, you just keep pulling the magnetic card every time you use it, it ends up not being a ton of good. But I think more often than not, I was successful with it, at least once.
Yeah, you'll at least buff one thing, because even if you top deck a magnetic card, you get to count that one.
Yeah,
That's right.
And it never happened, but if you were to discard his Masters of Magnetism, it's got 2 resources on it. It would buff his defense and Thor, which would have been cool, but that never happened to me. I was never cool enough to get that.
That happened to me a lot. That was actually probably one of my best interactions was magnetic pulling, Master Magnetism. I really liked that about the design of this character, was that his resource card was magnetic. So to be able to like have a hand size of like 5 in hero form and then be like, ooh, I just got Master Magnetism. I can actually play like more than one thing. This is gonna be a sweet turn. Yeah, that was good.
So help me out here. This is, I guess, another rules clarification because it says specifically if you discarded at least one card or one of the following resource icons. So why would it apply if you pull the magnetic card and put it in your hand because you're not discarding it?
Excellent question. And the reason why is the magnetic pool ability says you discard cards from the top of the deck until a magnetic card is discarded. So technically you discard that magnetic card first, then you get to pull it.
All right. That makes sense.
That's the thematicness to it, is you're being able to magnetically pull that card out of the discard.
Oh, see, look at that. See, that's a whole different level I didn't know existed.
Yeah, the designers put a lot of they put a lot of effort into some of the theming of the cards and the abilities.
Now, Scott, do you want to take it or do you want me? Probably the companion upgrade
Oh,
to
it's
the
mine.
armor.
It's mine. This is probably my favorite card. This is even like above his helmet and his magnetic bubble. I was always shooting for Magneto's cape. It's a 2 cost upgrade, armor, magnetic. It gives him aerial, but the big kicker for me is after you resolve your magnetic pull ability, you can exhaust the cape and ready Magneto. And that is, to me, heroes that can ready and have a great stat line is perfect because you can have your big events to do your big event things, but then you can rely and reliably rely on your base stats to keep things under control, whether that's minions, thwart. You kind of can do it all. And one of my like favorite games I had in Magneto, I was playing against Eunice, and it was just a madhouse of like gene pool and everything. And I was like, I'm gonna die because I had like 10 or 12 on gene pool, and I was able to just have this like magic turn where I was able to thwart it back down and control everything and not just like utterly die against Eunice. And this was the MVP.
Can't really add much to that. I think it's a great card. Reading is always a win, and you gain aerial, which opens up a whole pool of cards.
Agreed.
Perfect.
Thanks, Casey.
Yeah. Way to
Um,
contribute.
I think
That's the kind of expert commentary you can expect.
that's right. That's why we pay you the big bucks.
That's right.
I think I'm gonna go next and talk about Magnetic Bubble. It's a 3 cost upgrade. It's magnetic and a superpower, which is nice. He gains Retaliate 1, and when you would take, or Force Interrupt, when you would take any amount of damage, place it here. Then, if there is at least 6 damage here, discard Magnetic Bubble. I really liked this card. I found that most of the time when I drew it, I tried to play it. It's great defense. I love the Retaliate on it. It was just a win for me overall. Other heroes have cards kind of similar to this, but for some reason his just I felt like it was the best version of all those. It just really worked for me. And I know a lot of people have built decks. I know Boom Guy has talked to us about he built a pretty great deck around the magnetic bubble. So it's I agree. I think it's a great card, and I think people can really build around it and make it really strong for them.
All right, I got a couple questions for you. Did you find yourself feeling like it was almost like a 1 or 2 and done and it was gone? Or did you try and keep it for as long as you can to maximize the retaliate? What were some of your thoughts on that?
I encountered both circumstances where it was gone pretty quick. So only got to utilize the retaliate once, maybe twice, because the way I played it, maybe I'm wrong, is I did the force interrupt prior to retaliate. So if it triggered, I wouldn't have done the retaliate. Does that sound correct?
I think that's the proper way to play it is if you lose the magnetic bubble, you would lose the retaliate. So at the end of everything, finishing steps and everything, you would not retaliate. Even though they attacked a retaliate character with retaliate, I don't, the heroes always have to suffer from the villains and the minions, but in this case, they got a break.
I think some decks, like we talked about, if you play a protection deck, you could probably keep this out a lot longer. But in any other decks, it goes pretty quick. But it was nice to have. It was because as we talked about previously, his basic stats are good, and with the ability with his armor and with his cape, being able to stay up and not having to defend is a big win for him.
So I had a couple cases where like I had a few minions out and I would actually defend against the villain with the bubble and then let them kind of ping my magnetic bubbles so I could retaliate both of them, and then also save up that big attack from the villain to kind of finish off the bubble. So it wasn't
Because
like,
yeah,
yeah, the bubble took the big brunt from the villain, and then the minion just pinged off the last one, and you're like, well, that's a waste.
yeah. No, I agree. Trying to get close to that 5 before taking a bigger set of damage is the ideal move.
Magneto's helmet, I don't think we spend too much time on that. It is a 3-cost upgrade, so it's a little bit more expensive than what we've seen so far. It gives him steady, and you can exhaust it to generate a wild for a magnetic card. Casey, what are your thoughts on Magneto's helmet?
I hated that I had to pay 3 to get it out there, but once I did, since most of his cards are magnetic, it was incredibly beneficial to help me get some of his other cards out much faster.
Because ideally,
Yeah.
you should have one magnetic card from your pool each round, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So just to for you, Casey, because I don't know if you really had to deal with it that much. Steady means those little cards, the stun and confused. You have to have 2 of those to actually be stun or confused, which means you
Yeah.
either can't attack or can't thwart. So that basically allows them to have extra stun and confuses against them before it happens.
Which didn't come into play in our particular scenario, but I can see why it would be a huge benefit.
I think thematic wise, I think it plays a little bit. You can't be confused. That's the whole helmet thing, right? Kind of harder for him to be confused.
Kind of.
I think it would have been cooler if they just didn't do steady, but did it as you can't be confused. I think
See, that
that
would
would
have
be
been
really
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
You can be stunned easily, but you can't be confused. I
But
think
see,
that
they
would have
just
been
don't
a very
have.
interesting play.
They don't have that in the game. Like that would be groundbreaking because they have stalwart, which means the same thing, but it's universal stun
True.
and confuse. They need to make a new word.
I mean, I figured they just write it down on there. Magneto
yeah, just do
cannot be
that.
confused. I think that would have been cool. But I will have to admit, I played several games and I would get stunned and confused and I would get rid of it and be like, oh man, I hate getting stunned and confused. To later realize that, oh wait, I forgot this card had steady this whole time. It kind of got lost in the resource aspect of it for me, but that's just because I couldn't read. So
Yeah, we're still working on that with Ryan.
yeah.
All right. So that gets through most of his setup. Everything else is events. We've already talked about Master of Magnetism. It's his resource card with 2 resources, a lightning and a mental resource. So,
I say, Scott, why don't you take the attack one? I'll take the Thor one, and we'll give Casey the special 2.
combo built into Magneto. Okay.
Yes.
You are the thwart guy, but I have a thought on the thwart one. So when you get to it, so you gave me metal shards. It's a 3-cost event. Attack magnetic superpower. Hero action deals 7 damage to an enemy. If that attack defeats that enemy, gain a tough status. It's his big attack card. I don't think there's much more to say about that. To me, like I have this internal conflict with a lot of these recent cards. It's like the big attack wants you to use it to defeat a minion. And I struggle with wasting my big attack on a minion rather than the villain. I think the villain is the better play to put the most amount of damage on in a 1-card single attack.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried to build a deck to make this advantageous to me, which was doing a overkill deck. So I can't remember the one. It's the aggression resource or upgrade where you can attach to a minion and all their attacks against them gain overkill.
Is it marked?
I think it's marked. And I would whittle it down and then throw that on there, or throw it on there and whittle it down and then throw this and just make those metal shards go right through them, right to the villain, and then I get the best of both worlds. So on its face, I'm not a huge fan of the second half, but I think it's a good card overall. I think it works.
It is marked, by the way. It is marked.
Yeah. Yeah. I did have to try and pull some minions, but I tried to play a lot of minion heavy scenarios.
I sort of agree with you. I think it would be nice if it didn't have the little tag to it, but I found it to be useful. Uh, out of the Thort one and this one, the second half usefulness, I think this one's better. For general purposes, I think it's better.
I agree. All right.
Yeah.
You guys have any
I
thoughts
think
about
our
metal shards?
specific one. Well, yeah, the scenario we played, I think we only ended up getting 3 or 4 minions. I don't know if that's typical. So more often than not, I didn't get to take advantage of the second half. But when I did, it was nice because whatever deck you gave me was set up really well to, when I killed a minion, it benefited me in, I think, at least 2 other ways to go with that, which was really nice.
I think you played Scott's overkill deck that he talked about.
Yeah.
I was assuming that was the case. I just didn't want to.
Yeah, because that was the deck I was hoping to play on Thanksgiving. So thanks, Casey.
It was a super deck.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I will do the Thor one. Electromagnetic Blast. It is a magnetic superpower Thor 2 cost. Hero action Thor, remove 3 threat from a scheme. If this removes the last threat from that scheme, you may discard an attachment with the text hero action or hero response. So 2 main thoughts. Removing 3 threat for the cost of 2 is kind of, it's not my favorite. But I do like the ability of being able to remove an attachment with hero action or hero response. That can be very beneficial, but it missed most of the time. There was only a couple times where that actually hit. When it hit, it was awesome. It was really helpful, but it didn't happen very often for me.
See, that's my thing. I think this card is better in solo because of how little it's removing. You don't want these huge values that you gain in multiplayer. And then you're right. Like, you have to have the perfect setup, right? Because if you don't have any attachments, it's kind of worthless. And if you've got those big schemes with a bunch of thwart on them, you're not going to get it. I will say that I played in a Unis game and I removed 3 attachments without having to do any of the hero response stuff due to this card. And I was poo-pooing on it early on when we did our preview that it was not going to be that good, but it changed my mind. It's when it hits, it's nice.
Yeah, I'd kind of echo that thought. The game we played, I think it hit twice for us of all the times it came up, and the 2 for 3 isn't a great number. Even as a newbie, I know that much. But when it hit, it hit well. It was a big advantage.
Yeah.
Now,
in
the 2 that we've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, go ahead, Ryan. Yeah, the Sentinels. We played the Sentinels, and they had some pretty big attachments. They have 3 big attachments. So
yeah, it ended up being very helpful.
The other thing I was going to say is we talked a little bit about the cost, but the events are usually where you can make up some of those if you've got a good kind of engine built for resources. So his helmet will decrease him. A Def Focus will decrease a superpower card. And then, or an X Gene. So if you ran either one of those or combination, you can get it down pretty easily. Which I felt that if I had multiple events, I could do more than one thing a turn, which was good.
Yeah, even though the cost to amount of threat removal isn't great, I never noticed it to be bad. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, I never struggled to play it because he has a lot of ways to pay for his cards.
Or I would find that I would have a Master of Magnetism that I could just throw towards it, which was nice.
Yeah, that was easy. All right.
K-Dog. Why don't you start here?
All right. So this is what on paper seems like it's going to be the perfect combo, and that is wrapped in metal, which, in essence, any non-elite minion, you wrap them in metal and they more or less can't activate. And they're useless, which is great. And that is incredibly helpful. And then to make it even better, you have Magic Missile waiting in the wings. And when you play that, it will automatically take care of that minion. It'll discard them, and then you deal 5 damage to an enemy and stun it. Which, great idea. Terrible in practice in my experience. In the entire game, it worked exactly one time. And it just became so incredibly frustrating because every time I thought I was going to be able to make it work, we either didn't have a minion or didn't have a way of getting Magic Missile back into my hand to take advantage of the wrapped in metal. So as a combo, I'd give it, 2 stars. Barely recommend.
I
that's
did
a
feel
good.
bad.
That's Casey's hot take. I like it.
I know.
When it worked, it was really cool. It just didn't work ever.
Yeah, watching you like hold on to one and be like, all right, I know I have a wrapped in metal coming up, so I'm going to hold this missile, and then it not come up.
It never. I was positive that I'd worked my deck where I could get them both in my hand at the right time, and I did. And then no more minions came out, so it just became a useless card to hold on to.
Yeah, this one does have a little bit of a kind of a lucky pull off kind of thing.
I think if there was a way, and granted, the two of you who've been playing a lot longer probably could better manipulate the deck so that you were pulling these at the right time to take advantage. But more often than not, I'd say it was luck, since I don't have that particular skill developed yet.
So you need to play Domino next time, Casey. She's nothing but luck. You can make your own luck.
That is where I live. There's zero skill in these hands. I just kind of point and hope it works out in my favor. So she seems like right up my alley.
I know you said, or Scott said it was a hot take on what you're talking about with Wrapped in Metal and Magic Missile. Wrapped in Metal alone, I think, is a great card. As long as there's minions, it's awesome. But kind of like you, there was a lot of times I played this that I'd get Magic Missile when I didn't need it. I get Wrapped in Metal when I didn't need it, or there was an elite minion out or whatever, and I never could connect very often. But when I did connect, it was really fun and really awesome.
Ryan, or I guess Casey too. Go ahead. Mine has to do with the art. So finish your thought. No, finish your thought on this, and then we'll talk about the art for a second.
I'd say just kind of as a whole, so many of his cards kind of had that feeling for me where when they worked, they were really freaking cool to watch them blast and do something big. But for me, it was very difficult to make it happen consistently.
Okay, so is his torso just a giant disco ball? Like, what is that?
It's his little undershirt armor, right?
Yes, so.
Is that a horseman? Is that War?
Yes.
From the
it's one of the horsemen. Okay. Yeah. It's the one with the bowl cut. I just never noticed his giant disco ball body before. Because I was trying to see
I'm thinking it's probably some sort of chainmail-ish.
It probably is.
Armor, but I don't know, man. You might be right.
I'm gonna look up the other cards.
All right, while you're doing that, I'm going to talk about. It's very similar with Casey. So I found it slightly more advantageous to find Wrapped in Metals to throw out and then just leave them. And then even if I had a deck cycle and come and get the magnetic missile, then I could do it. And I did have a couple of fun times where it worked good. I played against Claw, and he has some armored guards that come out with Tough. So I was able to wrap them in metal, and the Toughs were just like, whatever, and then I would just throw them at Claw, and it dealt with the Tough, got rid of the minion, dealt the damage, gave him the stun. That was a fun interaction. But I agree with you, Casey. either you have it in your hand, you don't have a minion, it just becomes a waste of a card in your hand. Uh, I feel like too much is riding on having the perfect storm in scenario all the time, with having so much built into those 4 cards total, 2 of each.
Yeah, if you know you're in a minion heavy scenario and you have a certain amount of card manipulation ability, then it could work out incredibly well. But without that, it's going to be a rough go.
Yeah. I mean, in a multiplayer setup, you're likely to utilize it a little bit more because there's going to be more minions popping out. But yeah, I'm kind of conflicted because I really like what both of them do. They're just not very consistent. I really like the idea of these these combos that are dependent on other cards in a deck. I like the idea a lot. It just didn't land every time. But again, when it did, it was really fun and it was very exciting. So
All right. Well, that is all of Magneto's cards. But before we get to our final thoughts on Magneto, he came with leadership. He kind of came with a ally archetype to him. I don't really think I want to go over a bunch of the cards. Maybe just hit a couple of high points, or maybe a card or two, Ryan, that you thought was interesting. And then Casey, you didn't play his precon.
No.
So I don't know how much value you'll be able to add here, just because you don't have experience with them.
I think Scott just called you useless.
Yeah, it's a story
Yeah,
of my
for
life.
this segment, you're not going to be great. I think I want to touch on maybe 2, get your thoughts, Ryan, and then if you want to have a couple. Do you have a favorite near ally? Do you have a favorite ally that he came with? He came with 5.
I thought the allies were fine. I'm a bigger proponent of the less cost ally, so I don't mind Kid Omega. I think it's okay, but it's not my favorite. But it has its place. It's psionic and it's an X-Men, so there are ways to make it pretty helpful in certain decks.
He was probably him and honorable mention M. M was more value to me than I had first anticipated. But Kid Omega, I was playing that Eunice game, and I can't remember if it was damage or thwarting, but I had like 3 side schemes, I think, and he turned into a 3 cost because of spinning it, but it was very much value added to be able to take away so much scheme for 1 cost. So, and then he's a 2/2, which is nice for a 2 cost. Normally you don't see that. You usually see like a 1/1 or a 1/2 of some variation. So I liked Kid Omega. I think he's good. Unfortunately, I think my biggest downside is we're done with the mutant. So unless you just really go back to a lot of mutant characters, he may kind of phase into the back of the box, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree. Out of the events, the one that I enjoyed the most, a lot of them, I'm not a huge fan of the way the discard and ally do this with a lot of them. I don't think the benefits are as good as they should be, or like the cost is too high for the fact that you have to discard one of your allies. So I never really enjoyed these, though I see some of the benefits in certain decks, but I generally don't play a heavy ally deck, so none of them really are appealing. But I will say Squared Off, the 0 cost event, was one that I've played around with a little bit, and the archetype of finding a minion and putting in to be able to do something special is pretty good. I didn't mind it.
Yeah, and I think it's a value add for leadership. I don't think they had a way to pull minions like that and be able to reduce a cost by 3. That makes most allies free, if not making them a 1 cost. So
yeah,
it's pretty good.
So I think there's some pretty good value in Squared Off.
I would say Squared Off's probably my high point. The other one I wanted to touch on was Face the Past. This
Mm.
one, you got any thoughts? Did you ever play it?
I feel bad. I really like this card, but I've never actually gotten to play it, but I want to. I really like what it does. I know this card is not created equal for all heroes. There are some heroes that you do not want to play this, but I think there are some that you could play it and it could be pretty great.
Yeah, that was my thing. Is when we first got it as Magneto, and Magneto has an awful nemesis, awful in the way that it's like really, it can be really bad for you. I didn't really want to pull him out, just all willy nilly like that. So I think you're right. I think I need to find a hero that makes this card worth it. Um, so I think it'll be a time and a place, but I never played it. I just
Yeah.
not I never played it because I've only been playing a lot of Magneto lately. So maybe
Yeah, I think it
maybe
definitely
with
has
another.
its place.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do like it. I like playing off the whole minion, or sorry, the nemesis thing, and it has a pretty good value for readying and drawing 3 cards. I would say with that, you have a good chance of being able to either get rid of the minion or get rid of the side scheme that comes out. Um, oh no, not side, just the minion. Not the side scheme doesn't come out.
Yeah. You just pull
A
your
side
actual.
scheme,
Yeah.
yeah, but you hopefully can get rid of that minion or do something else that you need. But so I like it, but it's not for every hero.
Yep. All right. I think it's just fun to point out because I think most communities point it out, but Def Focus was traded as protection as a
Oh yes.
misprint. And then wasn't there another misprint somewhere? I can't remember. I think there's another misprint somewhere. Let's see. What was the
New
last thing?
recruits was a side scheme that came out. Overall, I've thought it's okay. I'm not sold on it yet, but I would like to test it out more.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a decent one. I like the concept of being able to go pull. The only thing I don't like is it goes to your hand. Would have been nice if they
That
went
I
into
think that's
play.
my biggest issue. Yeah,
So,
but for
uh,
being 0 cost, I think that's why.
so the last honorable mention is Children of the Atom. It pretty much makes any mutant traded, not mutant trait, but any of the heroes that have X Factor, X Force, X Men, they gain all those traits, and all the allies and everybody just gains it. My question to you, Ryan, is which which trait do you think gains the most from this card? Do you think it's
Uh,
X Men gaining all the others, or do you think it's the others gaining X Men?
I think it's X Factor.
That is correct.
Uh,
That's the right answer.
yeah, being able to have multiple man have some benefits. I think can create some interesting opportunities. But the protection ally that I like the most with it is I can't remember his name all of a sudden, but I really like him, Warlock.
Okay.
Um, because you can soup him up with the trainings and do awesome fun things with that, and you can always heal him up, so you can kind of keep him out as a forever ally.
All right. We normally don't go over this stuff. They came with a modular set. Kevin Bacon and the crew, Hellfire Club. So I did play this one. I thought it was fun. It was good. I think it was just a good modular set to throw into kind of anything random. So I think it's worth it. It was a good one. I don't know if you played with it, Ryan.
Um, I didn't play with it really a whole lot, but I think it is. I don't think it stands out as anything like mega awesome. But I thought it was all right.
It was just good. It's just good. All right. That is Magneto. I guess we rank. Don't we rank things, Ryan?
Yeah. So Casey, since you're now back from the delay of me and Scott just rambling, we generally do a grade for them. And just like how people do those internet tier lists, they do like the S rank and the A, B, C, D. That's where we would rate. S being like the best hero in the world. D or below, I guess, would be a pretty terrible hero. So basically, we just talk about it and give them a grade and tell us why you're right.
All right, that seems fair enough. I think I would have to say, in my not so professional opinion, I would probably rank him maybe A minus in general.
Ooh.
Now, granted, this is not a very big sample size of the people I've played, but I'd say maybe A minus in general when things are hitting. But more often than not, he played more for me like B tier. Because they always had something to do, but only on occasion was it something that really felt like that really stuck it to the scenario.
I think that's a very fair assessment.
I think that's very good because you pretty much just took the words out of my mouth. I'm gonna be right there with you. I'm gonna give him an A minus, mostly because of what you said. But I found that due to his basic stats, it pulled him up from like a B plus for me. With his basic stats that can get souped and readying, I found that I could kind of just ignore Wrapped in Metal and Magnetic Missile if I needed to. And then if I could take advantage of it, I could, and then I could have fun, cool things. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm going to give him an A minus.
All right, here we go. I am going to give him a very solid A. I think with most heroes, once they're set up, have the upgrades they need or whatnot, they start singing. And because of his ability to be able to pull magnetic cards, I was able to get his upgrades out fairly quickly. And I found that he was just very consistent in all my games. He defended surprisingly better than I was expecting, even though I didn't defend a whole lot. He healed. He had energy generation. He had good base stats that could get souped up. He had a ready. He could gain tough. He could mess with the villain. He could do all sorts of things. But the one downside was, as you mentioned, when he hits. And sometimes he didn't hit, so he had some wasted cards. But I found that overall, it didn't affect him enough to drop him for me. When he does hit, though, I will say he can be high A, maybe even S tier for some people, if you're hitting with all of his special things, his Wrapped in Metal, his bonus things for his attack event and thwart event. If you can hit those pretty consistently, he's pretty tough to stop.
Yeah, I agree. Casey, did you find him fun to play? I know you got a small sample size, like you said, but fun-wise, was it a fun game?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it probably took, I'd say, a round or two to really get the feel of him. But I think at that point, things started clicking. And at that point, it became a lot more enjoyable to play, a lot more intuitive to be like, okay, this is what he wants to do. And I'm pretty sure I can start making that happen. And like Ryan said, you really start getting your upgrades out quicker. And that's where he really starts to see how good he can be. So yeah, I think he was a real good time to play.
I think you made a good point, Ryan. I feel like late game, he's very consistent with his events. You can pull those pretty quick with the magnetic pull. The worst is when you're like, oh, I need this one event, and I magnetic pull, and you get Master of Magnetism. You're like, I have 2 resources now I can't do anything with. This is great.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely his flaws, which I like. I like when characters have flaws. They're not perfect. But yeah, I don't know if I'll come back to him a ton, because I felt I don't know what the right word is, but I did feel like when I play him, I'm mostly just doing his magnetic stuff. His aspect cards don't matter as much. Even though they did, I would create decks and they would be good around them, but for some reason it just felt like it was just the magnetic show. Everything was just I was doing magnetic pool and that was how my game. So a lot of my games felt the same.
I will agree. They did feel a little samey because he does have that consistency to him, right? To be
Yeah.
able to just go
Yeah.
grab his good cards.
Yep.
So I agree. You're not going to have some of those heroes where their upgrades, like this one particular upgrade, is vital to them working, and it's at the bottom of your deck, right? And you've got to go through 3 or 4
You're
rounds
stuck.
to get to it,
Yeah.
right? With him, you can consistently get out one of his better upgrades pretty quick.
Yeah. And if you discard it, flip down, get it back.
Yep.
Do it all over again.
Or if you use like 3 magnetic cards to do something, stop and just flip and then shuffle them right back in, so you know you've got
Yeah.
them loaded for an upcoming round.
But yeah, that's the final hero of this round, the final hero that we've been waiting for, so we could get our survey out. It is our survey has been out, and we've gotten some really interesting results. Casey, you'll have to I would say do our survey, but you haven't played with most of the villains and heroes. But we did a survey because at the end of the year we like to do a end of the year awards episode. Where we give awards out to the best hero, the worst hero, best villain, so on and so forth. And it's a good time. So we've been waiting for Magneto to come out because that wraps it all up. Now we can tally up the scores and find out what the people are saying and find out if they match what we're saying. So it's going to be a good time.
Yeah, it'll only probably be out for a little bit longer when this episode comes out. So
Yes.
get it in if you're listening to this now. Do it.
Just do it.
Let's see. Any final things that I had? I think that's pretty much
Out of
it.
curiosity, where do you find the survey? Is it in the show notes? Is it on your? Do you have a Facebook page?
So it is out on the Facebook page, and it should be in the last at least like 3 episodes out in the show notes. So you should be able to access it fairly easy. And if you're part of like the big Facebook group, it was posted out there, but it's been a couple weeks, so
We'll probably
search for it.
post
Yeah, I was
it.
probably going
just
to post it one more time
out.
just to kind of say, get it in. So, but like Ryan said, it's been fun to see everybody do it. We appreciate it. A lot of good feedback. So, should be a pretty amazing award show coming up in a couple weeks. So, I rented my tux. So, I'm getting all dolled up for the event. I mean, it is an award show after all.
If you've never seen Scott in a sequin cummerbund, you have not lived.
It's true. Oh man, there was one last thing I wanted to say. Oh, so before you go, Casey, I know you haven't seen the full array of what's out there, but if you could play one hero in Marvel Champions, and you can just say whatever, and we'll tell you if he's out or not, or one villain, or maybe like a group of villains that you would want to see in Marvel Champions, what would those 2 things be?
If I had to choose one that is out currently, this is what I said to you when we played at Thanksgiving. I'd want to play Domino, just because it sounds like a lot of fun. But if I could choose any group
any
to
Marvel.
be
Yep.
brought into Marvel Champions, it would be the Night Stalkers,
Okay.
which was, if I'm not mistaken, it was 80s, 90s. It was Blade, Ghost Rider, some of the more occult Marvel villains or Marvel heroes. And I think that would be a lot of fun because there's not a Ghost Rider right now, is there?
Nope. Those are some
No.
anticipated.
That
Yep.
seems ripe for some opportunity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they probably got it in a few years, Draw the game out. Got to get that money, so.
Yeah. So normally we have some allies of some of these characters. So we have like a Blade ally that you can play with, and a Daredevil ally. There's actually 2 Daredevil allies, but there's no Ghost Rider ally yet. Is that right? It's kind of unless
No
I'm being
Ghost Rider.
crazy.
I could potentially maybe see him in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. box wave that's coming out next year. And
Maybe.
they did I know it's not the show, but they've based a few things off the show. So there was a Ghost Rider season in there. So it's always possible.
Oh, that's
It may
true.
not be the Johnny Blaze version. It may be the Robbie Reyes version. I think that's his name.
I
who
think
knows?
it's
Hey,
that's close
either
enough.
way, I mean, he's the only one that can walk in both worlds, so they need to get him
Now-
in here fast.
I'm the only one who can walk in both worlds. I'm Ghost Rider.
That's only if they bring in the Nicolas Cage version, Casey.
And
I mean,
they
really,
better.
is there any other version worth having?
No, it's Nick Cage.
It's absolutely.
All right, let's hear what villain or maybe group of villains you would like to see.
I am definitely much less versed in Marvel. I'm more of a DC man myself. Um, do they have an Omega Red villain?
There
Already?
is an Omega Red nemesis for Wolverine, but he is not a
I
villain.
I think he would be a cool villain. I don't really know much about him other than, he's the Soviet era. I just remember he looked really awesome in the comics and in the cartoon. Apocalypse was always my big guy, and I know they brought that out as part of the last box. But I haven't played it yet, so that might fill it for me. Outside of that, I can't really think of anyone that I'm just aching to play or aching to fight. I mean, they've already got Mojo. I mean, where do you go from there?
It's true.
It's true.
And if you want a
And-
month of Mojo Max, use our promo code Marvel Champions at checkout. Oh, dang, sorry.
It's a good joke. You did a
Yeah,
good
it's a
job,
good
Scott.
one. Yeah, that was a
It's good like
throwback.
that.
It's a throwback. We did that one.
So it sounds like we need to play one of the apocalypses. There's 2, and
Yeah.
you need to be Domino. So
Yeah,
When,
I mean, we've got the 3rd annual GoatCon coming up next month. You need to bring Marvel
that's
Champions,
right.
and we can make
Yeah.
it work.
let's do it. I'll figure out a deck for you, or if you've got a aspect you want to play, we'll make it happen.
And for the listeners, Casey mentioned GoatCon. That is a friends getaway weekend that we do with a group of people. And so we just call it GoatCon because the first place we did it at had a goat in the backyard. And now we have a trophy that has a goat. So good times. Go play games, people.
That's right. All right. Well, Casey, thanks for joining us for this Magneto review.
Yeah.
It's good to have you.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate you letting me crash your podcast for a short time.
Yeah.
We really enjoyed it. I think you gave some really great thoughts, and I think you probably hit the nail on the head with a lot of things. So I think the listeners are going to appreciate that fresh take, because I think they get tired of me and Scott. They want to hear new voices.
Yeah. So you're our official. You're one of the chumps. So we'll need to have you back
good.
on.
Definitely a chump. Not quite yet made it to champ yet, but I'm holding out hope.
Well, Casey, you can always become a champion, and you do that by reaching out to us. And you can do that by emailing us at marvelchampionspod@gmail.com, or reach out to us on all the 50 other million things that people do with social media. And as always, if you want to go from a chump to a champ, listen to the Marvel Champions podcast. Thanks.
Don't forget your Magneto helmet at home.
Could have been your magnetic underwear, Ryan.
Oh, my magnetic underwear.
See
Yeah, don't
ya.
forget your magnetic underwear. But I guess the next question I would say would be I don't really have another question. We might have to cut that part off. I couldn't think of a question. I thought I had one.
Sorry, my dishwasher is deciding to dump really hard at the moment. Give me 1 second. It might be just a hair quieter. All right.
I'm the only one who can walk in both worlds. I'm Ghost Rider.